Welcome to another episode of Centre Court. Things are heating up now in the netball world. It's all thanks to Lexus and Berwick, who are here for you, and TAC Ditch the Distractions. Ash Brazill is here with me. As always, we're not together in the studio. Of course, I am in Brisbane in quarantine still, but Ash, you're in Melbourne and you have been watching how the netball has played out this year. Round 14 has been done, and I want to take a look at the ladder, Braz. I don't know if you want to take a look at the ladder, but when you look at the bottom four, Firebirds, Giants, Thunderbirds, and your Magpies, how does that make you feel when you see finishing on the bottom of the ladder in season 2020?
Well, thanks for welcoming me onto the show with that, Bianca. A hard-hitting question, a little bit of a punch to the face nice and early. It's obviously been a tough year for my Magpies girls, but I really thought they grew over the season. And I think, which a lot of us forget, 4 senior players were out of the side this year, a big change from last year. And we had so many new faces. And I know everyone's dealt with COVID differently, but being in Melbourne, like not being able to train, not being able to get Nat back on court, having players from Adelaide, not getting them until we're in Brisbane, just so many ups and downs. The fact that we only lost 5 games by 5, I think that excites me for next year, that we've really laid a foundation now, and really the only way is up. So for me, that's exciting. And I'm just so glad that the young girls actually got some court time and experience. So now we can go into this season where Molly Jovic has played a full season rather than just a quarter here and a quarter there. So for me, I think exciting times for next year.
Absolutely, I agree. That is the standout for 2020, is all of the young players that have an opportunity to have got out there on court, to even just build the way they play the game and get you so used to that intensity. Because can you remember when you first started? And I remember back when I did, and that was ages ago, but just how much of a shock to the system it is when you step out on court with that intensity of what Super Netball is like.
And just the excitement as well. I remember my first ever game looking up, and I'd been on the court for 3 minutes and I actually could not breathe. It was just the adrenaline, the crowd, everything I ever wanted. And I'm now on the court and I just can't breathe. I'm thinking, oh my God, I need to call time. I can't play this game. This is ridiculous. So the fact that our young girls have been able to blow out the cobwebs and experience that, I think, look out for 2021.
Now we need to talk about your club a little more. It's now time to get to the agenda, thanks to TAC. If you're on your phone, you are driving blind. Ditch the distractions. So back to you, Braz. I'm putting you in the hot seat today. We heard yesterday the announcement that the head coach of the Magpies netball team, Rob Wright, will no longer be continuing with the club in 2021. He has been there for 2 years. And so let's just go back in history. We know the Magpies started 4 years ago. Christy Kevich-Birrell had the job for 2 years. Rob Wright now has had the job for 2 years. There's 1 more year left on their Suncorp Super Netball licence for Magpies and the Collingwood Footy Club. 1 more year. Firstly, I want to ask you, what were your thoughts when you heard what happened yesterday? Were you shocked, or did you know it was happening? How have you been coping with the last 24 hours?
Yeah, for me, I was shocked, and more because I guess, everyone knows I'm still in Melbourne. I'm rehabbing a knee. So I've actually felt like a big distance from my team this year, which is only natural. I haven't seen them at all for the last 14 weeks. So that's been hard. So I haven't been there to experience if there's been a roller coaster ride, how the girls have been handling the losses, and just, I guess, day to day. So I can't really speak about that. But for me personally, I had Rob when I was 16, and he's still one of the best coaches I've ever had. He thinks different to any other coach. He sees the game different to any other coach. And so, for me personally, I was sad not to see him there. And because I know he's a great coach and I know he's got so much to give. And I just feel, I feel sad that I wasn't there to be a part of it for his last year and support him to, hopefully get more wins. So it's a tough one.
And when you talk about his style of coaching, I mean, just even when commentating, I absolutely love interviewing him because he gives you very different answers to what you expect. But he just thinks about the game in a very different way. What do you think he's taught you as a player?
It's quite funny because everyone's like, oh, he's just so different, and he really he's stat driven, he's this, he's that, and but really he just sees the game for what it is. There's no glitter, there's nothing special about it. It's just a game of netball, and he's really brought me just to bring it down to earth, basics wins netball. Don't worry about the flashy stuff. And what I love about him as a coach is when I take the court, he just gives me 1 or 2 instructions, and that's all I have to focus on. So I'm not thinking about 100 different things. It's just Braz, this is your role and do it. And I've loved that about him.
Quite helpful, isn't it, when you only get a couple of instructions?
I only think about a couple of things at once, so don't overload me.
Do you have any idea who or what's going to happen? Is there going to be a process? Can people apply for the job? I'm not saying I want it. I'm just saying I do not want it. But what happens? How much do they inform you as players at the club about what's going to happen next? And do you have any ideas who's going to be coaching?
No, so at the moment, we were just informed that Rob doesn't have the job. We haven't been given any other process. I think the other coaches find out today what the process will be, and then I'm sure it will filter down to the team. But yeah, it's different because, it's now contract period where, I don't know. I know for me, if I wasn't already a contracted player, that would be my first question. Well, who's the coach? So I don't think they can leave it too long. And also as a player that is contracted, I want to know who my coach is. I want to know what their plan is, who they're looking at. So we can already start focusing on next year. So it's going to be a tough one. And I think, I'm assuming, and this is just me, that it would have to move pretty quickly if we're going to sign new players.
Totally agree with you. Watch this space, everybody. There's plenty that's going to happen in the off season. It's never a dull off season. There's always so much going on with player movement and now with coaches being appointed. So watch this space.
The worst time of the year.
Yeah.
As an athlete, it is terrible.
One of the positives I think that we have to talk about, Braz, is that in the Nitty Gritty last week, we spoke about what had happened with Gemma Mai, the Firebirds, with the Indigenous players that have just lacked opportunity within our game for so long at every level of netball. And we said it, we wanted Netball Australia to say something, we wanted someone to stand up and say this is not okay. And I was really proud of our sport yesterday, and people can whinge about timing and all of that, but I was really proud of our sport to stand up, and Netball Australia put out a declaration of commitment to breaking down barriers to Indigenous players at the elite level. They've got the 20 national, state and territory club bodies. They all signed the declaration, and it's all about firstly understanding, which I think is really important, and then trying to resolve why there is lack of Indigenous players at the elite level. So, it was a pretty strong statement. I love that they held the press conference in the way that they did. And I just feel it's just about time, and finally, hopefully, having all of the experts on board, like Sharon, Finn and White, who have all agreed and committed that they're going to guide this process. They're going to be there. They're going to tell Netball Australia what is working and what is not working. And I finally feel like we might be making some progress.
Yeah, I think it's great as well, B. And for now, it's out there. We've made this commitment. So for me, it's all about action. It's so easy to actually say it, but it's now, how are we going to do this? And let's actually put it in place. Let's see action. I want to see this really happen now. And just I guess not really a change of topic, but a little change of topic. Your podcast with Josie this week was so good. And for a player who's played with Josie for a few years, I still felt like I was learning things about Josie in that podcast. And to be honest, Josie was an athlete that shared her story. She wasn't afraid to tell stories. She wanted to know everyone else's story. But then hearing that, I was like, I don't know if I wasn't listening properly or if now my ears are open. I don't know. But I felt like I got to know her even more. And it explained the person who she was, when probably, I was like, I wonder why Josie's thinking like that. So for me, it's still about the education, storytelling, and players and people that don't understand, ask the question.
Oh, thank you for saying that, because if the podcast I do with Sherelle is called The Inner Circle. And last week, we just felt like we had to do something. We didn't know what we could do. We thought, the thing that's come out and stood out for me was everyone telling their story. So rather than us trying to interview people and, you know, only letting them have a small amount of say, I just felt like we needed to give people the mic, hand it over and go, tell us what it's been like for you. And so to have Sharon Finn-White hear her story, and then Josie Jance-Dawson, and her story was so different to Sharon's. And, you know, obviously I played against Josie, and so I didn't know her that well, but I didn't even realize the impact that Sue Gordian has had on her life and her career over in Western Australia. I've always seen Sue stand up for all of the Indigenous players and do that incredible interview with Beryl Friday. But there's so much more background that I think we all needed to realize. And it was fascinating. And I just hope that stuff and all the interviews doesn't just happen in Indigenous round anymore, that it's something that we keep happening and we keep listening and we keep learning.
Yeah, it's a good interview. Like if anyone hasn't heard it, like I suggest you go on now and listen to it, because even understanding like Indigenous players going into an army camp and they demand so much respect, and Josie just not going, well, if I have to give you all this respect, why aren't you giving it back to me? Like just understanding that. And it made me even think, yeah, why do we do that? You know, like, so I think, yeah, if you haven't heard it, please go listen to it, because I think it's something you'll learn so much from.
Absolutely. And one other thing, just before we finish with the agenda, I want to get your thoughts on a former teammate of yours and mine as well with the Diamonds, but Caitlin Bassett. We saw her not take the court for the Giants when they actually drew with the Swifts in round 14. She may have helped them win that game, but she didn't play. She had a knee injury and decided that wasn't going to be for her. Lots of talk about what's happening with her next year, where she's going to go, where she's going to play. She's still contracted in 2021 for the Giants. I know we've spoken about this a fair bit. What do you think, Braz, is going to be the best thing for her career? Where do you think she's going to end up, or do you know anything?
Oh, I know nothing. And yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one. You know, there's obviously all this talk about Caitlin going to New Zealand. And, you know, if she goes to New Zealand, will this mean she loses the Diamonds captaincy? There's just so many questions around it. For me, I would love to see her play in Australia. I don't care what team, but I feel like we need to keep her here. And also just for selfish reasons, I don't want New Zealand to be playing on her week in, week out and seeing her perform. So if we can keep her in Australia, I think that's the best thing for Australian netball.
That is a really good point that you make. We do not want the New Zealanders getting more opportunity to play against Caitlin Bassett. That was the agenda, all thanks to TAC. Ditch the distractions. It's now time for the Nitty Gritty, all thanks to Lexus of Berwick, who are here for you. Contact the team and visit lexusofberwick.com.au. Braz, we've seen a number of retirements, as you do at the end of each season, but in particular this season, there's some really big names that are calling time on their careers. Let me take you through a list. Firstly, Jackie Russell for the Sunshine Coast Lightning, Nat Medhurst from the Magpies, Maddie Brown from the Magpies, all Aussie Diamonds players, and then 2 Vixens players who announced their retirement this week. Caitlin Thwaites, who has played for 18 seasons. Can you even cope with that? That is such a huge amount of time on the netball court, warming up, fitness testing, all of that. And then also Tegan Phillip. Were you surprised to hear that the 2 Vixen shooters were hanging up their dresses?
I was, yeah, a bit of a shock. Just because, like I'm just going to talk about Caitlin Thwaites for a second. She is killing it. This is like I think she was an unbelievable player when she was at the Magpies. She got MVP her first year and runner-up MVP the second year. And like this year, it wouldn't surprise me if she got MVP for the Vixen. She's just playing so well. So yeah, good on her for calling it quits. You know, a lot of people say it's call it time when you're still on a high. So I think, yeah, in my eyes, she could have kept playing, but yeah, big shock for me that it came out this week.
And I think too, on Caitlin Thwaites, one thing that stands out for me is she is in career best form, but I actually think it is on the back of her just being able to play the game without all the stress and worry about diamond selections. We both know how much pressure that puts on you, how much mental space it fills up when you're playing a game thinking about diamond selection in a couple of weeks' time. I think she's just playing with complete freedom, and I reckon that is because she has made that decision in her head probably at the start of the year, and we're just seeing the best of her because she doesn't have anything else to worry about.
Yeah, you wonder like how many players play with that, fear of not making the diamonds, and how much better they could be if that wasn't a huge factor in their mind. So I think, yeah, she's a perfect case study to see, okay, she's retired and now look how good she's playing. She's not just playing goal shooter, she's running out a goal attack for a whole game and just killing it. So yeah, well done for Caitlin, and I've absolutely loved watching her play this year.
And then on Tegan Phillip, she's been one of those players, how we always say, you never compare your pathway to somebody else's because it's always so different. And Tegan Phillip really didn't start playing at the top level until she was a little bit older. And she, I think, replaced Ash Howard in the Under-21 World Cup team when Ash did her ACL. That was when she got her opportunity there. And then she replaced Sherelle McMahon when Sherelle did her Achilles. I think that was in 2011. And it was the first time we really saw Tegan take the court with the Vixens at the time. So Tegan's been one of those players that she has just made opportunities at different times, but she just stood out to me as one of the freakishly fittest players I have ever seen. And training alongside her, it would make me so angry all the time that I'd be like busting my butt trying to do all the fitness sessions to try and get fit enough. And old mate Teague, she can just rock up. She's faster than everybody else. She's fitter than everybody else. She can jump higher than everybody else. She just had that natural talent.
Yeah, it's just like natural athleticism. Like she is just, a pure athlete. But what I love about her as well is she just doesn't take that for granted as well. She's a hard worker. And I've only played with Tegan at Diamonds or Fast Five. And so I can only speak from that experience. But her workload at training, she was a machine. And it kind of shocked me. And I don't mean to be rude, and Tegan, please don't take this in a bad way, but I just wasn't expecting to see how athletic she actually was. And I think because, a lot of our goal attacks in SSN go under the radar because our goal shooters are just powerhouses now. But she, in her own right, is a machine. I'm sad for Teagues that we haven't really seen her on court as much this year because she's been such a consistent player for the Vixens over the last however many years.
And I think too, with Tegan and Caitlin announcing their retirement, we know that they're doing it on the back of starting a final series. Do you reckon that's a good call, bad call?
A little bit scary call for me. I'm not a milestone person. I hate them. I hate 50th, 100th, anything like that. So a retirement, if it was me, I wouldn't like the pressure around me, but it might be a good thing for the team to feel like they've got something more to play for.
Well, it will be interesting times. I really want to talk to you now about the final series because we've seen, so the top four, Vixens finished first, clearly out on top. Then Lightning second, Fever third, and then Swifts finishing in fourth place. But what shocked me was the performances of the Fever and Swifts in round 14. They both had the opportunity to secure second place, to be able to get into that major semi-final, to be able to get a second chance. We saw the Fever go down by 1 goal to the Thunderbirds, and then we saw the Swifts draw to the Giants. To me, I just feel like, are those two teams not in the right form going into finals, or do you just think that was just a slack game from both of them?
Yeah, I'm not sure, and it's something I've thought about this week because I've put a question mark now on Fever, and I still believe they're going to make it to the grand final. I'm still backing them in, but have we not respected Ingrid Collier enough? Have we not? I think since Ingrid's gone down with her knee, Fever just haven't been in the same form, and because they've got Janelle Fowler, they've got Verity Charles, they've got two amazing athletes. You kind of lose the goal attack and the wing attack a little bit. And we need to remember those are still two key positions. So I think Fever at the moment are just trying to replace Ingrid and trying to, work out Emma Kosh, who is normally a goal attack, how she is going to play a wing attack.
Watch this space for the Fever. On the Swifts, I don't know if you know this, but they have been doing the most substitution rotation. So they're using their rolling subs far more than any other team in the top 4. I think Bryony Akel we're going to find out whether that's a smart move or whether that's going to be a costly move, because we haven't really seen Swifts play 4 great quarters where they've really dominated like we have seen them in the past. What do you make of the rolling subs and that it's, they're constantly changing what's happening on the court?
Well, I find it funny that it's the youngest team doing it, because they are probably the least team that need to do it, because they're all super fit bunnies running around on court that they don't actually need a sub. But yeah, I think we've talked about it in previous shows, that I understand doing that earlier on just because it was 2 games a week. We needed fresh legs. But now going into the finals, they're a week apart. I think you really need to cement who your 7 is. And not even just 7, maybe 8 or 9. You don't need to be playing so many players at this time. But who knows? Maybe Swifts will prove us wrong. But yeah, if I was a coach right now, I'd be sticking strong with my 7.
Well, one player that is standing out for the Swifts is Sam Wallace. She shot 44 in their game with the Giants, and I think 6 of those were super shots. So I love the fact that her and Janelle Fowler are both nailing the super shots. I can't wait to see what damage they do in the final series.
Do you reckon the finals will come down to super shots?
Well, isn't that going to be controversial if the winner of the grand final this year nails it with a super shot? That would actually be quite funny, I think. I hope it plays a big part in the final series.
Yeah. Well, we saw it this week with Giants being down by, I think it was 10 or 12 and 5 minutes to go and bringing it back with a draw. Like, yeah, I think now we're actually starting to see people play it and play it right.
That's right. And shooters are obviously getting more accurate and knowing the timing too of when is a smart time in that last 5 minutes to use it and when just go for the 1-point shot. All right, that was the Nitty Gritty, all thanks to Lexus of Berwick, who are here for you. Ash Brazill, now I hand it over to you for Brazilliant this week.
Thank you, Bianca. So my Brazilliant this week goes to Chelsea Pitman and the Adelaide Thunderbirds. First, I'm just going to talk about Chelsea. So I just want people to put into perspective what it's like to be told you don't have a contract next year during the season. So just imagine, I don't care where you work, Woolies, wherever, you get told that, okay, you're a great employee, but we want you to work for the next month. But then after that, you don't have a job. So being told that, you'd instantly be angry. Like, you'd be mad, you'd be questioning it, you'd be in all sorts. And then you have to front up to work and keep going. And if you were at another job, you could probably just walk away. But in a netball contract, you can't. So Chelsea, for me, has held herself so well. She's the captain of the Adelaide Thunderbirds, and I would not question her at all how she has been performing. She started this game off. The Adelaide Thunderbirds were down by 1 or 2. They decided to put her on. And when she spoke to the team, her passion and motivation, like, I wanted to jump through the screen and play for the Adelaide Thunderbirds. I was just so impressed. And for a player that knows this is going to be her last game with the team and still wants to continue, I just think shows great character from Chelsea. And yeah, any team out there looking for a wing attack, if I saw that, I'd be going, we need her right now, just how she held herself. And then I'm just going on. And then how they won it, which was just mind-blowing that they beat the Fever. But then as Chelsea got MVP and as she was doing her speech, the whole team were behind her and just showing her that support. So you can definitely tell that the love and care's there. And for me, it's so disappointing that Chelsea is going, because for me, Adelaide Thunderbirds next year are a team to look out for, because I feel like they're actually now starting to build something. And it will be interesting to see what it's like without their captain there next year.
I couldn't agree more. When I was watching that, of the team all standing behind her while she's being interviewed, they were so proud of her. And that's what you want in your leader, in that all the girls want to play for you. They want to play with you. They want to help you. They want to support you. And the fact that all of the youngest girls who are, Georgie Horges, who is playing for her very first season, all she did was want to support Chelsea in that final moment. And I don't know. I just think that shows a brilliant team. And I think it could be quite disruptive taking their passionate leader out of that side. I actually think it's going to be a really hard position to fill. So I hope Adelaide Thunderbirds have done their homework and they have someone ready to come in and be that, more older, experienced leader, and not just hoping that they pick up somebody without Chelsea there, because could be a big call.
And and well done to Chelsea. But obviously Adelaide have a plan, and I'm excited to see what it is. But again, Chelsea, well done for the way you've held yourself the last 2 weeks, because I know a lot of players would have struggled with that.
It's now time, Braz, for the final say. I'm going to throw it to you first. What have you got for me?
I want to talk about Janelle Fowler. For me, I think she's going to be the player of the finals. And, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't believe one player can win you a championship. But that is different for Janelle Fowler and LeBron James. That is it. If she can step up, I reckon Fever can go all the way. So, yeah.
So you think she's going to be the player of the final series?
Yep. Janelle Fowler. Watch this.
Okay, I'm going to change my final say now, because I'm going to pick who I think is going to be the player of the final series. And I know I'm a bit biased, but I'm going to go with my Vixens defence end. And I'm torn between Emily Mannix and Kate Eddy. Emily Mannix, I feel like, hasn't quite... We've seen some great games from her, but we've seen other games where she's been taken off the court and Katie Ann Dehaney's been put on. So my final say is that Emily Mannix is going to be the player of the final series. I think she's going to step up. She loves the pressure. We haven't seen her dominate the tall shooters yet. And I think this is the time we're going to see Emily Mannix really get into her own and just dominate and win it for the Vixens.
And she is one of our favourites. We mention her on every show. So if she could just step it up a little bit just for us, that'd be great.
That's right. We haven't seen any TikToks lately, and maybe that's because they're concentrating. Fair enough too. It is finals. Just before I finish up, Braz, who is your tip for the major semi-final, Vixens Lightning? Who wins that one?
Vixens.
And then for the minor semi between Fever and Swiss, who do you think is going to go through the prelim?
Fever. What about you, B?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with exactly what you've said, and I can't wait to see how it all plays out this weekend.
It's going to be a good final series.
That has been Centre Court for another week. Thanks to TAC. When you're on your phone, you are driving blind. Ditch the distractions. And Lexus of Berwick, who are here for you. Contact the team. Visit lexusofberwick.com.au. Thanks so much, Braz. I look forward to next week. There's going to be so much more to talk about.
Thanks, Bianca. And if we can start off with a nicer question next week, I'd muchly appreciate that.
I promise you, a positive start next week.